and my people. So I'm going to give my introduction in my native language. Odo Daphna Sauza, Ina A Christine Edwin Bauza, Ita A Greg Hoffman Bauza, Ina A Ban Sitsu for McCoy Bauza, Ina A Bata Sitsia Steve Felch Bauza, Ita A Greg Hoffman, or Ita A Ban Sitsu Layla Virginia Wells Bauza, Ita A Bata Sitsia Layla Donald Hoffman Bauza, Manil Hatsata Hudson Savannah Slet Anchorage Lesdo. I'm Christina Edwin. My Danaka name is Odo Daphna, and I'm a community organizer with Native Movement. And I am an MC for this rally, and I'll be introducing speakers with my co-MC here. But I wanted to read this script here because I could talk about the issues we have pressing us in our state for hours and at length about how the Alaska Federation of Natives needs to hear our voices as Native people across the state. So I'll read this to keep on time. We gather today at the annual Alaska Federation of Natives Convention to voice the urgent need for climate action and call for an immediate end to proposed projects that would threaten indigenous hunting and fishing areas. The impacts of climate change are affecting Alaska Native communities right now. Villages must be moved, wildfires are raging, melting permafrost is changing our land, and people are losing their lives. We're going to have speakers talk about these issues today, and I'm going to pass the mic.
Woohoo! Nakita ninyo, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for gathering here today. As Christina said, this is what we're fighting for. Communities like the ones around you right now are what we are fighting for. Spaces where we can voice our needs, make our voices heard, and stand together for our rights. Our lands and waters do not exist without us, and we do not exist without them. So my name is Ruth Miller, and I will also do my Denina introduction with a cheat sheet. Yahnida, Chuhunage Dininu. Ruth Miller Shiiji, Dena and Nakanaga Chef Kumhena, Shikamiak and Venice Ide, Vena Ina Ekokesman Shugu Shikaya Kilanda. Shedasnaka Heather Kendall Miller Shukta, Lloyd Miller Stukta, Hope Simon Ruth Peterson Chichida Ina, Arthur Miller Chu Jack Ferguson Chichada Ina, Chikanek, Chinan Kukutsitsna Edin Hadat, Yetahana Bagu Ets Yale Etsete. Thank you everyone for gathering here today. My name is Ruth Miller. I'm a Denina Athabascan Alaska Native woman. I was born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, but my family comes from the Bristol Bay area and near Dalton as well, by Lake Clark. My mother is Heather Kendall Miller and my father is Lloyd Miller. My grandparents on my mother's side are Ruth Peterson and Jack Ferguson, and my grandparents on my father's side are Hope Simon and Arthur Miller. And I am proud to call them all into this space with us. We are doing the work of our ancestors, and we are doing the work of our future generations.
Woohoo!
I also am here to represent Native People's Action and the good work that this Native group does to promote the voices and needs of our Indigenous peoples on all levels of politics in Alaska. As a coalition of Native organizations, we are calling on Alaska Native leadership to move with urgency to address climate change and stop harmful projects. This year's theme, Good Government, Alaska Driven, encourages a conversation about tribal sovereignty as a solution for our people's well-being. Indigenous rights are the antidote for this crisis.
Our speakers include youth climate organizers, village public, I'm gonna scratch that one right now. Bristol Bay protectors, Arctic National Wildlife Refuge protesters, Tongass protectors, and no Donlin advocates. My people who've gathered here today, again, thank you for coming. We're gonna have speakers start speaking, and I just want you to know that all over our state, we're seeing a lot of issues, and I hope these speakers can hit your hearts and minds today. And our first speakers are youth.
Sorry, Auntie's going to interrupt for just a second. I just want to say welcome to my brothers and sisters all here, like
welcome our first two speakers who are very, very famous, very important youth advocates. Nanesh Peters and Kwana Chasing
Jojri Nanesh Peter Ojri Vashanko Gwatsan Itli Gatanan Guichi Shihani Nate Sashiti Yvonne Peter. Hello everyone, how are you doing? My name is Nanesh Peter and I am Netsai Gwachin in Navajo, and I am 15 years old and live here in Fairbanks. Good morning, Najitho. My name is Kwana Potts. Kwana Chasing Horse I go by. Han Gwachin. I'm Han Gwachin in Lakota Sioux from the reservation. So me and Nanesh came here to stand with all of our Native people in our community to fight not only for climate protection, but also fighting for our Arctic refuge, our animals, murdered and missing Indigenous women. We wrote a resolution at Elders and Youth, and it passed at Elders and Youth. And so we're going to read it to you all now. It's titled Declaration for Climate Change State of Emergency in Alaska. Whereas the First Alaskans Institute Elders and Youth Conference is the largest statewide convening of Alaska Native elders and youth representing our diverse Alaska Native cultures and language groups in order to enhance and perpetuate the unique spirits and identities of our peoples. And whereas the purpose of the conference is to connect elders and youth for cultural knowledge transmission, strengthen statewide relationships, amplify the power of our participants as leaders today, and advance solutions to challenges faced by our Native peoples and our communities. And whereas we, the Indigenous youth and the future leaders of Alaska, are concerned for the survival of our future generations, ways of life, traditional lands, intact ecosystems, emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being due to climate change. And whereas our Indigenous lands and waters are warming at twice the rate as the rest of the world. Many communities across the state face hardships directly correlated with climate change, such as the extreme warming temperatures which melt the permafrost, cause mass erosion, resulting in the relocation of entire communities, along with devastating the natural habitats of our animals and plant relatives. These impacts have disrupted Indigenous seasonal hunting and gathering traditions. And whereas, in recent years, we have lost community members due to unpredictable and unsafe ice conditions, have seen the die-off and disease of seals, salmon, migratory birds, shellfish, whales, polar bears, and recognize that these are also our relatives. And whereas we, the Alaska Native youth, are asking our tribal leaders to consider, as is traditional, the future of their grandchildren and the generations to come. Now, therefore be it resolved by the participants of the 2019 First Alaskan Institute Elders and Youth Conference that we reinstate a climate action leadership task force within Elders and Youth and the Alaska Federation of Natives to advance Indigenous voices and advocate for strong climate policies that will ensure the survival of our future generations. And now therefore be it finally resolved that this resolution, once accepted by the participants, be transmitted to the Alaska Federation of Natives for approval to declare a state of emergency on climate change. So this resolution was, it was actually one night where we got together, and it was a really, really busy and tense, and we were all trying to throw all these really important aspects into writing it. And it passed on Wednesday at the Elders and Youth floor, and so it's moving on to the AFN floor Saturday from 10 till 12. Woo! And so showing up and supporting and standing in solidarity with this resolution is going to mean a lot. So if we can pack the Carlson Center in that time and really be there to support it, it would be amazing. Woo! Also, to talk about the resolution and how climate change affects your communities in the tribal breakout sessions during AFN is also really important. also wanted to talk about the Arctic Refuge, and recently the HR 1146 bill was passed to protect, not permanent protection quite yet. The next step is to go and lobby and talk to Senate to try and get them to pass the bill for permanent protection for our native lands.
Woo!
And I just wanted to say, not only is it for our future generations and our indigenous kids, it's for the whole world. The whole world is connected to the Arctic. There are migratory routes that come from all over the world that come to the Arctic. There are millions of, thousands of animals and habitats that are in risk because of climate change and drilling. So I just wanted to say that we also need to remember that we need to stand together, because I know not all Native peoples get along, but we all stand for the same thing. It's to keep our people safe, it's to protect our lands, it's to protect our animals,
Woo!
our plants, and for our future generations to thrive and to be able to live our ways of life the way we have for thousands of years.
Woo!
So, and that is our right. That is the way we are. That is our right. So we need to be able to stand together and just tell everyone, keep everyone aware, and and just be able to be strong. We all are so strong, and I think a lot of our indigenous youth is not recognized for that. We are facing a lot of crises, and we are all standing together. So I thank you very much for being here and sharing with us and fighting with each other. Masicho.
Woo!
Thank you, Masi.
Aren't those youth amazing? Masicho, thank you, both of you. So let's try a chant here. Our lands, sacred. Our waters, sacred. Our bodies,
Sacred.
our lands,
Sacred.
our waters,
Sacred.
our bodies,
Sacred.
our lands,
Sacred.
our waters,
Sacred.
our bodies.
Sacred.
That's right.
Who that? No, I'm just kidding. We're not done yet. Thank you again for coming. We have tea, coffee, cocoa, hand warmers, and pizza. Please, if you aren't eating, grab some food. And if you see an elder who's having a hard time, go assist them, please. Our next speaker is Bernadette Dementif, and she represents the Gwich'in Steering Committee and also has words to say about protecting the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Let's welcome her up.
Okay. My name is Bernadette Dementif, and I'm from Fort Yukon, Alaska. Founded in 1988, the Gwich'in Steering Committee is the unified voice of the Gwich'in Nation of Alaska and Canada, speaking out to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge coastal plain. But to us, it's called Ejikwasan Gondai Godlit, the sacred place where life begins. Our people gathered at the first gathering in over 150 years in Arctic Village, and they gave us their direction to go out and tell the world that we are here, to do it in a good way, and do not compromise our position. That sentence, do it in a good way, that's a very simple sentence, but it's not always easy when we're up against so much dishonesty and misleading statements. But by the direction of our elders, we continue to stand strong in unity with the strength of our ancestors. In 2017, Trump's administration opened our sacred land to oil and gas development. Although that happened in 2018 at the Gwich'in Gathering in Segachik, Northwest Territory, Canada, our elders directed us to continue to lead this fight, to continue to protect our land. Our identity is not up for negotiation.
Woo!
We just, it's not easy doing this work. And we cannot leave it up to our children to do. We have to stand with them. This is not an issue that they created. We have to do better.
need to do better. I want to also just acknowledge my chief of Gajaja. Again, thank you. It's always an honor to have her in our space. I get a lot of my guidance. I don't think sometimes my elders realize that I do listen when they talk. It's always an honor to have them. We're not going to give up. Giving up is not an option. So we do need support. As Indigenous people, our identity is interconnected to our land, to our water, and to our animals. And if there is damage to the land, then that's damage to us. We have to recognize that. And we have to do better. We have to stick our differences aside and come together as Indigenous people and protect our homelands. Woo!
Thank you, Bernadette. We appreciate you. Well, we're still gonna continue using the blowhorn because it has a better effect anyways.
Makes it seem real radical.
Yes, which is how AFN was started. Let's keep that movement going. Our next speaker is Shawan Jackson Gamble, and he is a youth delegate from Tlingit and Haida Central Council, and we appreciate that he came all the way to Cold Fairbanks from Southeast Alaska.
You speak now. Okay, we got it working.
There we go.
I thought so. These Tlingit men are too tall.
I'm here today to represent my people, and not only my people, but my future grandkids that are going to be here today. On Tuesday recently, the U.S. Forest Service is in full exemption of the roadless rule in Southeast Alaska, and if about the roadless rule, it will be opening up 55% of the Tongass National Forest open to logging, mining, and development within our homelands. And that's something that we can't afford as Indigenous people because we rely on our lands. We always have for 10,000 years or more. It's not just going out to get those foods. That it's the process of giving respect to those foods in our lands. It's more than just getting a fish, or it's giving it to your elders and stuff. There's a value in that you can't put a price on. And sorry, I wrote some notes here. Majority of Alaskans, they prefer no action to the roadless rule. Elected officials, they're not listening to their people. And recently, two out of 14 of the Southeast Alaska tribes in the public meetings were the only ones that wanted a full exemption of it. And so that our elected officials, they're not taking the time to consider our sovereignty. We have been here for 10,000 years. We've maintained our lands for over 10,000 years, and we have another 10,000 years to go. So I think that my challenge to you guys is to reach out to our senators, because all three of them are for opening up the roadless rule again. I think that it's important to talk to them about it, because it could just be us that want to do this, but we got 10,000 years of ancestors and strength behind us. It's us underneath their hat right now. They passed on what they knew, and it's our turn to pass down what we know. So the elected officials, they're wasting tribal governments' time, precious resources, and energy by engaging them in a rigged process where their voices and inputs and concerns are repeatedly ignored. So I think that it's time, as Indigenous people, we unite, because it'll be powerful if we all come together like that. I know that there's other places along the state like Ambler that are trying to get a road put in for mining and stuff like that, you know. So I think that if we come together and, you know, we all have the same issues, you know, it's a matter of how you come together, you know. So that's all I have. Cheers.
My name is Dylan Lee, also here from Cake, Alaska. I just want to thank you all for listening. I've listened for a long time. The pillars upon which we've built our ways of life and our culture are in jeopardy now on all fronts, not just ours. It's becoming our time to speak. I'm finding my voice now. Thank you all for listening. Woo! It's time to speak.
Thank you for finding your voice. This is the time for all of us to find our voice. Now, some of you might be wondering how we're connecting all of these issues across the whole state. Why are we gathered here today talking about so many diverse peoples and regions of Alaska? And it is exactly what was shared by these two inspiring young men. We are stronger together. We are united as communities across Alaska. We're united as relatives. We're united as friends and families. And something that we say in this movement is this is hard work, but it's heart work. It's something that we care so deeply about because we have no other choice. We are fighting for our lives here. Woo! And so it takes stepping up, it takes speaking out. And so when we're talking about all of these issues across Alaska, we're not just talking about one mine or one oil rig. We're talking about how our governments continue to prioritize extraction and profit over the well-being of our native peoples. We are saying no more. That is why we are here today. And our next speaker, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I just had to get that out. And our next speaker is Mary Matthias from Akhatsagamute Native Council, Mamtagithlakmu. Yeah, she's a resident of Bethel. That's what I said in Yupik. And I want to say Koyana Dailutin.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Mary Matthias. I am the Natural Resource Director for Akhatsagamute Native Council in Bethel. I didn't come here prepared to speak, you know, like to have my speech here. So what I'm going to say is going to come from my heart. Within the past year, serving as a Natural Resource Director, we held our first protest march against Donlin, and it seemed like it was what all other tribal communities along the Kuskokwim region were waiting for, because they didn't have a voice and no one was saying anything. And I remember shouting, "Where is your voice? We need to stand up for our elders and for our children and their children's children." The Donlin gold mine poses a threat in the Kuskokwim region, and it's home to many people within the region. We gather, we hunt, we pick berries. We are very strong in our culture and gathering subsistence foods. It's what we rely on because most of the communities are low income or don't have that many jobs, and we fill our freezers so that we could have food during the winter time and food when we don't have enough money to feed our family. And with the corporations who own the land and making the decisions without our people, our voices part of that decision, like having our traditional knowledge of the land and waterways and what we use those lands for, and our reasons for keeping those lands and waterways protected so that it could still be around for our children and their children's children. And I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. But anyways, you know, the corporations, this is what an elder said at one of the meetings that I went to. He said, the corporations may own the land, but they don't own the people who live among the land. And the people who are leading have to stand up and fight for our elders, because they are relying on us young leaders and the leaders who are in the position of having the power to make things happen, and not just for ourselves but for our future generations, because this is what we know. The environment is, you know, connected to us. We are connected to the environment. We are connected to the land. We are connected to the water, the resources, and it has always been that way. And if anything should happen, what are we going to do? What will we do? How will we call our homes home if, you know, Donlin Gold Mine is built and their tailings dam fails and kills off the river? The Kuskokwim River is one of the largest rivers in Alaska, and it provides so much food to many people, many families, and it's our home. And coming together and make us stronger to fight against who is in our path, trying to say that no matter what we do, no matter what resolutions we pass, they'll still move forward. That's not right. And we're the corporations to stand by and do nothing while we are fighting. Shame on the corporations, because they are the ones who should be bringing the jobs into the communities, from the communities,
Woo!
from home, not from the outside. Thank you.
Woohoo!
I've had the privilege to visit the Kuskokwim and get to know Mary over several months over phone calls about protecting the Kuskokwim. And this banner is made by a young woman from Bethel, SC Bean, and it says, "No Donlin, protect Mother Kuskokwim." And in the spirit of what Mary had to say about the Alaska Native corporations, here's a message for them I want you all to participate with. When Indigenous rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When Mother Earth's rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When Indigenous rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When Mother Earth's rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Now the Yupik word for land is Nuna. When Nuna's rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When the people's rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Thank you all. You know, I minored in Yupik at the university, and one of the words that stuck with me is hlonguk, to become aware, a person who becomes aware. I'm pretty sure that's the word. Hope no elders are around here. But I did a panel on elders and youth, and that word came up for me. And I just, thinking about all these issues across the state, I want you all to become, hlonguk, to become aware and to take action and to speak up and step up.
Woo!
So this is an absolute honor for me to welcome our first chief of my tribe, Kiriang tribe, who came in from Dillingham, who's going to speak about the destruction of the proposed pebble mine in our region. Please welcome Thomas Tilden here.
Tommy! My name is Tom Tilden. I'm Chugyung Tribal Chief from Dillingham, Alaska. I'm a fisherman, but most of all, I am a subsistence user. I live off the land. The land to me is important. God put that land there for us. We have been here for 10,000 years, and we will be here for another 10,000 years. We as Native people have to protect the land and the waters. Regardless of whether you are a bowhead whale hunter up in the North Slope, whether you are hunting caribou on the plains in the central part of Alaska, or chasing herring in southeast Alaska, or fishing for salmon in Bristol Bay, that is your God-given right. I firmly believe that we as Alaska Natives, it is up to us to protect and to make sure that our children, our grandchildren, have something for their future. And that is the natural resources that we have in every part of Alaska. Pebble Mine has come out there to Bristol Bay, and they look at that piece of land and all they see is minerals. They don't see the richness. They don't see the clean water. They do not see the caribou walking on that land, or the moose, or the fish swimming in those streams. Those are the land, the air, and the water are sacred to all of us. God, when Jesus came down and was baptized in water, he made that water holy. And we have to protect the water, because all of this development that we're talking about contaminates the water, ruins the land, and destroys Native culture, people, language, and their food. And we cannot allow that to happen. We have got to fight, and we have to continue to fight. We have to educate not only our youth, but we have to educate the visitors that come to Alaska. We have to be united in order to save our land. If our culture, if our people, our way of life is going to continue, we had better take off our gloves and quit being so lenient in regards to who is coming in. Woo! We have to start fighting. Woo! And we have to make sure that the generations that follow us have something. And that's what we're going to leave with them, is clean water, good land, and a lot of natural resources out there that they could subsist on and continue our way of life. Woo! Thank you very much for coming out here today, and thank you for the organizers that put this together. We sure appreciate that, and we will live on for another 10,000 years. Thank you.
Koyana. Danana hoyanitsika kalanik. We respect and take care of the land. There's a lot of ways to say that in a lot of different languages across our state. And we know that the laws that were made don't always reflect our stories, our creation stories, and how much our land means to us and our relationship to it. And so we've had speakers talk to land issues and climate and our relationship to it, and our last two speakers are going to talk about our lives and some of the leadership around protecting Native lives. And this next speaker, I'm really gracious to introduce Samantha Irie. I don't know if there she is. She's going to speak to police brutality, and I want you all to have your feet under your hips, bend your knees a little, take a deep breath. We're touching on a lot of hard topics here, and I want to appreciate that you all are standing here in the cold to hear these messages. I want you to open your heart real big
for this next one. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Uvanga Samantha Ataturok Air Harrison, Juno Mingarunga, Anayukaka Magdalena Erlu, Kyle Erlu, Atataga John Downs Lu, Anaga Sikanek Lu, Juno Lu Kikiktagaruk Mingarungak. My name is Samantha Air Harrison, and I am a registered nurse. I am part of the Inuit Circumpolar's Councils of Emerging Leader Initiative, and I'm an enrolled member of the native village of Kotzebue. My little brother was Cody Air, the 20-year-old man that was shot and killed by law enforcement here in Fairbanks on Christmas Eve 2017. That night, he was suffering from suicidal ideation and decided to go on a walk to help clear his head. Movement was always his medicine, as was the land. He walked past my family's home on Farmers Loop Road, past 9 Mile Loop Road, and past Birch Hill Cemetery where my great-grandparents are buried. It was his last walk. That night, my mother made a wellness call to 911 asking for crisis intervention because she was worried about the potential that Cody may harm himself. Instead, a SWAT team made up of state troopers and Fairbanks police arrived. They wore bulletproof vests, helmets, and shields. They carried semi-automatic assault rifles with bullets capable of shooting through metal walls. One officer in his report said it was like shooting into a pile of clothes. I was with him that Christmas Eve in the trauma room as he passed, and I witnessed how he had been shot directly to the back of the head. In my family, there are 5 children. 4 of us are girls, and he was the only boy. He was the hunter in the family, and he was very proud of that. I keep a picture of him after he shot his first moose at the age of 12. My brother had a clean criminal record, and he spent the last 2 years of his life living remotely in Delta Junction and working for my father's construction company on the Tetlin Native Reservation. He viewed guns as a tool for hunting and for protection while out in the woods. Like many Alaska Native people, it was not uncommon for him to carry a gun while walking, hiking, or hunting in the woods. That night, he never fired his gun, despite being shot at over 40 times by law enforcement. One officer shot at him 26 times alone. The story I'm sharing with you is unfortunate, but it is not unique. Many Alaska Native families have shared similar stories. Alaska Native people and American Indian people have the highest rates of officer-related shootings out of any ethnic or minority group. Having a mental health emergency makes you 16 times more likely to be killed by police during an officer-related shooting. Young Alaska Native men have some of the highest rates of suicide in the nation, which has the potential to put them at a higher risk during an encounter with law enforcement. From the perspective of a nurse, I can tell you that the complex history of violence against Native people makes treating the root cause of suicidal ideation difficult. However, as an Alaska Native woman, I can tell you that the land is integral to our well-being. Time at moose camp, at fish camp, berry picking, walking, and hiking, these are all forms of healthy coping mechanisms. It is crucial that we maintain healthy lands in order to maintain a healthy state of mind. My brother knew this. This is why walking through nature was his go-to medicine. It breaks my heart that he was shot and killed by law enforcement while peacefully walking outside in search of his medicine. Nature was therapeutic for him. The land can mean the difference between life or death for us. It has been 21 months since Cody's death, and my family and I are still struggling to gain access to all of the case evidence. We believe that allowing law enforcement to investigate themselves when they could be the potential perpetrator of a crime creates an inherent bias in the legal system, as well as distrust. My family and I have been working with senators and representatives to create a bill that would make a more robust crisis intervention training with an emphasis on a culturally sensitive approach appropriate for or mandatory for all law enforcement officers. Please reach out to your local legislation and encourage them to support this bill. This legislation season, there will also be more information shared on social media that you can share with your friends and family. We have also been advocating for law enforcement to have access to less lethal alternatives than bullets so that they can respond appropriately to mental health emergencies. We've been helping to create dialogue around the need for mandatory data collection on officer-related shootings and acts of excessive force in the state of Alaska, as well as advocate that law enforcement not purchase military-grade equipment to be used on civilians. Alaska has been our home for millenniums. We all share in the responsibility to protect our people and our land. What happened to my brother is not acceptable. However, it happened for reasons that we do all have the ability to rectify as a collective. Kwinik, I humbly thank you all for allowing me to share these words from my heart. Thank you.
Let's all take a collective deep breath in and out. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with your hearts open. We are fighting for our lives today. And for that reason, I have some news. This rally's not going to end. We're going to walk into this building for the rest of the week and talk about these issues. We're going to continue fighting every day that we're here, and then we are going to take these messages home to our communities, home to our movements, to our workplaces, to our families. This rally is something made of spirit and heart and love. We are all here today in the cold because we care about the health and well-being of our people and our communities. This rally does not end here. These words will carry on. So thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing this today. Don't rush off after our last speaker because we're going to have a couple announcements, but I have some homework for everyone right now. Can you look around and find an elder and ask if they're okay and if they need anything? Because we have coffee and pizza and hand warmers over here, and it's cold.
So I'm going to introduce our last speaker, and that is an amazing woman I know, Jody Potts, who's Hangguchin and gave me this lovely tattoo that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life.
Thank you everyone for joining us today for this rally. We have so many important things that we as Indigenous people of Alaska are facing. We have attacks on our land, on our women, and sadly on our young men, as you just heard through the story, the courageous story that was just told. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, for the courage and the strength that you and your family have shown throughout this. You know, and she's right, there are things we need to ask for. We cannot stand idle and allow the government to continue attacking our Indigenous lands with development of oil and mining that bring man camps, that end up attacking and leaving trails of missing and murdered Indigenous women. We cannot allow it any further. We have to use every resource, all the energy. The fact that all of you are here today joining us in these causes is so important. We need your energy here. We need your energy inside AFN. We need them in the communities, back home in your villages. Take your people out to vote. Use that. Woo! Native vote matters. We also need people to stand up for our victims. We need people to stand up for the women that are being victimized at the highest rates in this state. We need to call law enforcement to do a better job in protecting our women and children. The state wants the responsibility, but they don't want to fund it. If they want the responsibility, they need to take care of their citizens, including their native citizens.
Woo! Woo!
So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for all the stories from our leaders and from our people. We are being attacked. Pebble Mine in Southeast with the forest, in the Arctic Refuge, Donnellan Mine, all these things. We need to continue the fight. We can't back down. It's a good day to be Indigenous, not just on Indigenous Peoples Day, but every day.
Woo! Woo!
So keep the fire, keep the energy, and continue fighting. Masi.